Candy Jones's lungs were on fire. Her bare feet slapped against the Chicago pavement, each step sending jolts of pain through her body. The stolen bread pressed against her stomach under her ragged shirt was still hot, scalding hot, burning her skin through the thin fabric. But she couldn't stop, couldn't slow down, couldn't let go of the only meal she'd have today. Behind her, angry voices echoed through the morning streets. "Thief! Someone stop her!" "Get back here!" Candy's chest heaved as she rounded a corner onto a quieter street, her vision blurring with exhaustion. 3 days. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. The smell of that fresh-baked bread from Miller's bakery had been too much. She'd only meant to look through the window. Just look. Just torture herself with the sight of food she couldn't afford. But then the baker had stepped into the back room for just a moment, and Candy's hand had moved before her brain could stop it. Now half the neighborhood was chasing her like she'd robbed a bank instead of stealing a single loaf of bread worth maybe $4. Her foot caught on a crack in the sidewalk. She stumbled, barely catching herself against a brick wall, the hot bread pressing harder against her burned skin. Tears stung her eyes. From pain, from exhaustion, from the sheer humiliation of what her life had become. 24 years old and running from an angry mob over bread. How had it come to this? "There she is!" Candy's head snapped up. The baker and at least half a dozen other people rounded the corner, pointing at her with fury written across their faces. Panic flooded her system. She pushed off the wall and ran harder, her legs screaming in protest. The street ahead was mostly empty, just a few parked cars lining the curb. No alleys to duck into, no crowds to disappear into. She was trapped. That's when she saw it. A sleek black sedan with tinted windows, parked at the curb about 30 feet ahead. And the back passenger door was slightly ajar, just a few inches, like someone had closed it carelessly and it hadn't latched properly. Candy didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't consider the consequences. She just ran. Her blistered feet carried her the final distance. She grabbed the door handle and yanked it open, throwing herself into the back seat with all the grace of a wounded animal seeking shelter. She slammed the door shut behind her and immediately started yelling. "Drive! Drive now, please! So just go!" The man in the driver's seat spun around, his eyes wide with shock. He was older, maybe in his 60s, with graying hair and the kind of neat appearance that screamed professional chauffeur. "Excuse me, miss," he sputtered. "You can't just drive, Peter." The new voice came from directly beside Candy, and it was so unexpected, so calm and authoritative, that she actually jumped. Her head whipped to the right, and her breath stopped. There was someone else in the back seat, someone she hadn't noticed in her panic, someone who was now staring at her with an expression that somehow managed to be both amused and calculating at the same time. He was gorgeous. The first thing Candy noticed was his sheer size. He was massive, not fat, but powerfully built with broad shoulders that filled out his expensive suit jacket like it had been tailored specifically to showcase his muscular frame. His presence took up the entire space, making the spacious backseat suddenly feel much smaller. Light brown skin that seemed to glow in the morning light filtering through the tinted windows. Hair slicked back perfectly, dark and gleaming. A strong jaw covered with a light stubble that somehow made him look both professional and dangerous. And eyes, striking gray eyes that looked almost silver in certain light, that were currently locked on her face with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. He looked exactly like what a Black American and Italian would get if they made a perfectly mixed baby. Like God had taken the best features from both and decided to show off. Or the kind of handsome that should come with a warning label. He was wearing an expensive suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored to his large athletic build. A crisp white shirt underneath, top button undone, no tie. Everything about him screamed wealth, power, and control. And he was looking at her like she was the most interesting thing he'd seen all week. "It looks like the young lady needs our help," he said to the driver, his voice deep and smooth. Then those gray eyes slid back to Candy, and one corner of his mouth quirked up in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Don't you?" Candy's brain struggled to catch up with what was happening. Outside the car, she could hear the mob getting closer. Angry voices, pounding footsteps. "Please," Candy gasped, still trying to catch her breath. Please, just drive. They're coming. They're going to… Drive, Peter, the man said calmly. Peter, apparently that was really his name, looked like he wanted to protest. But something in his boss's tone made him face forward, put the car in gear, and pull smoothly away from the curb. Candy twisted in her seat, looking out the back window. The baker and his mob had just reached where the car had been parked. They were pointing, yelling, but they were getting smaller. Farther away. Safe. She was safe. Candy slumped back against the leather seat, her whole body trembling with adrenaline and relief. Her heart was still racing. The bread under her shirt had cooled slightly, but her skin still burned where it had been pressed against her. Thank you, she breathed. Thank you so much. I didn't think… I just saw the door and I… What's your name? The man interrupted. His tone conversational. Candy hesitated. Candy. Candy Jones. Candy. He said her name slowly, like he was testing how it sounded. I'm Raul Gaius, and I have to say, this is certainly the most dramatic Monday morning I've had in quite some time. Gaius. So her guess about him having Italian heritage was spot on. She'd clocked something Mediterranean in his features. The strong Roman nose, the wave pattern of his slicked back hair, the way certain angles of his face caught the light. Mixed with his warm brown complexion and full lips that spoke to his black heritage, it created a striking combination. Black American with Italian roots. The name suited him perfectly. Not that any of that mattered when she was covered in dirt and clutching stolen bread like a feral raccoon. There was dry humor in his voice that made Candy realize he was amused by this whole situation. Her back straightened defensively. I'm sorry for jumping into your car, but they were chasing me and I panicked and… They seemed quite angry, Raul observed, settling back against his seat with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been desperate a day in his life. What did you do? Steal someone's wallet? His tone was light, but Candy felt her face flush hot with shame. No, she said quietly. No? One perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. Then what exactly did you steal that inspired that level of neighborhood rage? Before Candy could answer, the bread shifted under her shirt. It had been tucked against her stomach, held in place by the waistband of her dirty jeans, but the movement of the car had loosened it. The loaf slipped. It fell from under her shirt and landed on the pristine leather seat between them with a soft thud. Silence filled the car. Candy stared at the bread. Raul stared at the bread. Even Peter glanced at it in the rearview mirror. It was just a loaf of bread. Simple, crusty bread from Miller's bakery. Still warm. Probably cost $4. That's what she'd run for. What she'd burned her skin for. What she'd humiliated herself for. $4 worth of bread. Oh, Raul said softly. The amusement had drained from his voice, replaced by something Candy couldn't quite identify. You were hungry. It wasn't a question. Candy wanted to disappear, wanted to open the car door and throw herself out, wanted to be anywhere but here, and sitting in this expensive car next to this powerful man who was looking at her stolen bread like it told him everything he needed to know about her life. I didn't… Her voice cracked. I wasn't trying to… I just… When's the last time you ate? Raul asked, cutting through her stammering. Candy's hands twisted in her lap. Her fingers were dirty, nails broken and ragged. Everything about her was filthy. Her clothes, her skin, her hair that she hadn't washed in over a week because she couldn't afford to go to the shelter and they'd been full anyway. 3 days, she whispered. More silence. Then, Peter, take us home. Candy's head snapped up. What? No, you can just drop me off anywhere. Seriously, I'll get out right here. She reached for the door handle. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Raul said calmly. Something in his tone made Candy freeze. She looked at him, really looked at him, and noticed for the first time the sharp intelligence in those gray eyes. The way he was studying her like she was a puzzle he was solving. Why not? She asked slowly. Raul reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a leather wallet. He flipped it open casually, and Candy's stomach dropped to her feet. A badge. Chicago PD detective. Because, Raoul said, his voice still calm but now with an edge of authority underneath. You just committed theft in front of a police detective. And technically, I should arrest you for that. Candy's world tilted sideways. Detective. He was a detective. She'd just thrown herself into a cop's car while running from a crime scene? Of course. Of course this would happen to her. Candy stared at him in disbelief. You tricked me. I didn't trick you. You confessed voluntarily. Raoul settled back against his seat, looking entirely too pleased with himself. Now let's try this again. What did you steal? And please don't say bread. I need the full story. That is the full story. Candy's voice rose with frustration and fear. This was really happening. I stole bread because I was hungry. That's it. Why? Raoul's tone shifted, becoming more serious. Why would a grown woman not just buy food, work for money? There are programs, shelters, jobs. You think I haven't tried? Candy interrupted, anger flooding through her fear. You think I like living like this? Sleeping in abandoned buildings? Going days without eating? Do you think this is my first choice? Then why? Because no one will hire me. The words burst out of Candy like a dam breaking. No one wants to hire an ex-convict, okay? Is that what you wanted to hear? I have a record. I did time. And now every application I fill out gets thrown in the trash the second they run my background check. The car went silent again. Peter's eyes in the rearview mirror were wide with concern. Raoul's face had gone carefully blank, his gray eyes studying Candy with renewed interest. What were you convicted of? He asked quietly. Candy's jaw clenched. She didn't want to talk about this. Didn't want to relive the worst period of her life with this stranger who'd already seen her at her absolute lowest. But what choice did she have? She was going back to jail anyway. I might as well tell the truth. Possession with intent to distribute, Candy said, her voice hollow. 3 years at Lincoln Correctional. Got out 4 months ago. Raoul's expression didn't change. That's a serious charge. I didn't do it. They all say that. I didn't do it. Candy's voice cracked with the force of her emotion. My boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend, he set me up. The drugs were his, the whole operation was his, but when the cops came, he made sure I was the one holding the bag. Literally. And I was stupid enough, young enough, scared enough that I didn't know what to do. My public defender told me to take a plea deal. Said if I fought it, I'd get 10 years instead of 3. So I took the deal, and I did the time. For his crime. She was breathing hard now, tears burning behind her eyes. She refused to let them fall. She'd cried enough over him, over the 3 years he'd stolen from her, over the life he'd destroyed. And when you got out? Raoul asked, his voice still maddeningly calm. When I got out, I had nothing. No family. I'm an orphan. Grew up in the system. No friends. They all disappeared while I was inside. No money, no home, no job, nothing. Candy's voice was bitter. So, yeah, I ended up on the streets. And yeah, I stole a loaf of bread because I was hungry. The silence that followed was heavy, weighted with everything Candy had just confessed. Then Raoul leaned forward slightly, his gray eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. And you decided the smart thing to do, he said slowly, was to commit the exact crime that could send you right back to prison, with your record? Candy's anger deflated slightly. Because he was right. She knew he was right. What else was I supposed to do? She asked, and she hated how small her voice sounded. How defeated. Raoul studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed and leaned back, looking out the window at the passing Chicago streets. I don't know what to think yet, Raoul said honestly. That's why we're going to talk at my house. Consider it. An informal interview. And if I refuse? Raoul's gray eyes met hers steadily. Then I'd take you back to that bakery and let the mob have you. Or I'd take you to the police station and process you for theft. Your choice. It wasn't really a choice at all. Candy slumped back against the seat, defeated. Fine. Excellent. Raoul turned to face forward. Peter, home. Sir? Peter said carefully, concern clear in his voice. Are you certain this is wise? We don't know this young woman. She could be dangerous, Candy interrupted, some of her street survival instincts kicking in. Make yourself a threat. Make them think twice about hurting you. You're right. You don't know me. You don't know what I've done or what I'm capable of. Maybe taking me to your house is a really bad idea. She expected fear, anger, some kind of normal reaction. Instead, Raoul turned to look at her, and his face broke into the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. It was devastating. It transformed his entire face, making him go from intimidatingly handsome to absolutely breathtaking. You know what? He said, those gray eyes dancing with amusement. I think I like you, Candy Jones. You've got fire. Let's see if you've got sense to match. Y'all, did Candy just accidentally get into a detective's car? If you're already stressed for her, hit that like button. Comment Run Candy if you think she should escape, or Trust Raoul if you think he might actually help. Subscribe because what happens next is going to be emotional and you do not want to miss it. The car pulled through iron gates that Candy hadn't even noticed, and suddenly they were driving up a long, tree-lined driveway toward what could only be described as a mansion. Her jaw literally dropped. You live here? She asked incredulently. Family money, Raoul said dismissively, like living in a house that probably cost more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes was no big deal. My mother's family has resources. I became a detective because I wanted to, not because I needed to work. The car stopped in front of massive double doors. Peter got out and opened Raoul's door with practiced efficiency, though Candy noticed the worried look he shot his employer. Raoul stepped out, and Candy was struck again by his sheer size. He had to be at least 6'3", maybe 6'4", with shoulders that seemed impossibly broad. When he turned to offer her his hand, she felt tiny in comparison. She was 5'4" on a good day. He made her feel like a child. Coming? He asked. Candy took his hand. His palm completely engulfed hers, and let him help her out of the car. What choice did she have? The inside of Raoul's house was even more overwhelming than the outside. Marble floors, a sweeping staircase, art on the walls that looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything was pristine, expensive, and so far removed from Candy's world that she felt like she'd stepped into a different universe entirely. She was acutely aware of how dirty she was, how her bare feet were leaving smudges on the perfect white marble, how she probably smelled worse than she realized, how completely and totally out of place she was. This way, Raoul said, leading her up the staircase. They walked down a long hallway until Raoul stopped at a door and pushed it open. Guest room, he announced. Bathrooms through there. You'll find everything you need. Shampoo, soap, towels, a robe. Take your time. Candy stepped into the room cautiously. It was bigger than any apartment she'd ever lived in. The bed looked like something from a luxury hotel. The bathroom visible through an open door had a shower that could fit 4 people easily. She turned back to Raoul, suspicious. Why are you doing this? Because I'm curious, Raoul said honestly. About you, about your story, about how someone ends up stealing bread in 2024 Chicago. He paused. Plus, you'll talk more freely after a shower and a meal than you would in an interrogation room. So, this is an interrogation. This is a conversation, Raoul corrected. The difference is, you can leave anytime you want. Well, he smiled slightly. After we settle the matter of the stolen bread, anyway. Before Candy could respond, he gestured to the bathroom. Go, clean up. I'll have Peter leave some food outside your door. We'll talk in the morning. In the morning? Candy's eyes widened. You're letting me stay the night? You have somewhere better to be? Candy's throat tightened. She didn't. She had absolutely nowhere else to go. There are locks on the doors, Raoul continued, gesturing to the bathroom. For your privacy, I'm not going to barge in. I'm not going to hurt you. You have my word on that. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Candy? Try not to steal anything, I'll know. He left before she could respond, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Candy stood alone in the most beautiful room she'd ever seen, in a house that probably cost more than she could imagine, belonging to a man she couldn't figure out. And for the first time in 4 months, she let herself cry. Candy had meant to take a quick shower, but the moment the hot water hit her skin, she couldn't help herself. She stood under the spray for what felt like hours, watching months of street grime wash down the drain. She used the expensive shampoo. It smelled like vanilla and something else she couldn't identify, and scrubbed her hair 3 times. She used the body wash until her skin was pink and raw and finally clean. When she stepped out of the shower, she felt like a different person. While the water ran upstairs, Raoul sat in his study with his laptop open and his phone pressed to his ear. "Jackson," he said when the call connected, "I need you to run a background check for me. Candy Jones, female, approximately 24 years old, recently released from Lincoln Correctional." His former partner in the detective bureau made a skeptical noise. "You asking as a detective or as a private citizen with too much money and bad judgment? Does it matter? With you? Always." Jackson paused. "What's this about, Raoul? You don't usually care about street criminals." Raoul's jaw tightened. "Just run the check. I need to know if her story holds up." "What story?" "Claims she was set up by her boyfriend. Took the fall for a crime she didn't commit. Served 3 years at Lincoln." Raoul pulled up the Illinois Department of Corrections database on his laptop. "I want to know if she's telling the truth or playing me." "You think she's playing you?" "I think everyone lies until proven otherwise," Raoul said flatly. "That's why I'm a good detective and you're still stuck doing street-level work." Ouch. But Jackson was already typing. "Give me 20 minutes. Raoul hung up and turned his attention to his computer screen. He'd already pulled Candy's booking photo from the corrections database. Even in the photo, taken when she was barely into her 20s, scared and hollow-eyed, there was something about her face, a defiance in her eyes despite the fear, a strength that hadn't quite been broken. He pulled up her conviction record. Candy Marie Jones, age 20 at time of arrest. Charged with grand theft auto and accessory to burglary. Plea deal, 3 years, eligible for parole after 2.5. Served full 3 years. Released 4 months ago. Raoul's eyes narrowed. Grand theft auto, not violent crime, but serious enough. And she'd served the full sentence without parole, which either meant she'd caused trouble inside or had no one advocating for her release. Probably the latter, given what she'd said about being an orphan. He dug deeper, pulling court records, looking for details about her case. And that's when things started to get interesting. The stolen car had been registered to a Tyler Bennett. Reported stolen the same night Candy was arrested. But Tyler himself had never been charged. He'd claimed he was a victim. His girlfriend had taken his car without permission and used it in a burglary. Raoul's detective instincts pinged hard. Boyfriend blames girlfriend. Girlfriend gets arrested. Boyfriend walks free. He'd seen this pattern before. Too many times. He pulled up Tyler Bennett's record next. And there it was. Tyler had 3 prior arrests for theft-related crimes. 2 had been dismissed due to lack of evidence. The 3rd had resulted in probation. But nothing since Candy's arrest 3 years ago. Either Tyler had suddenly reformed, or he'd gotten smarter about not getting caught. Or he'd found someone else to take the fall. Raoul's phone rang. "Jackson." "Your girl's clean," Jackson said without preamble. "Well, as clean as someone with a conviction can be. No priors before the arrest. Model prisoner at Lincoln, took classes, stayed out of trouble. Public defender pushed her hard to take the plea deal. And here's the interesting part. Her boyfriend at the time, Tyler Bennett, he's got a record longer than my arm. All theft-related. All conveniently dismissed or pled down." "Let me guess," Raoul said. "He's never served time." "Not a single day. Your girl did 3 years for him." Jackson paused. "You think she was set up?" "I think Tyler Bennett is smart enough to use vulnerable young women to do his dirty work and dumb enough to think he'll never get caught." Raoul closed his laptop. "Thanks, Jackson. I owe you one." "You owe me like 15, but who's counting?" Jackson's voice turned serious. "Raoul, whatever you're planning with this girl, be careful. Ex-cons can be unpredictable, even the innocent ones." I'm always careful. No, you're always reckless and lucky. There's a difference. Raoul hung up and sat back in his chair, thinking. So Candy had been telling the truth. She'd been set up, used, thrown away, and now she was stealing bread to survive. He felt a surge of pity, but quickly stamped it down. He had a lot on his hands to care about another homeless girl. She wasn't his problem. Wouldn't be. He had bigger issues to solve, like the one he's been trying to solve for 10 years. He'd pay for the bread tomorrow morning, give her some cash, and send her on her way. Chicago had thousands of people like her. He couldn't save them all. Raoul stood in his kitchen the next morning, pouring coffee and trying not to think about the woman sleeping upstairs in his guest room. He'd left her food last night, instructed her to wear any of his ex-wife's old clothes. Vanessa had left an entire closet full of expensive things when she'd walked out 2 years ago, too proud to take anything he'd bought her. Those dresses had been gathering dust ever since. Might as well put them to use. He heard soft footsteps on the stairs. Raoul kept his eyes on the coffee pot, deliberately not turning around. He was a detective. He didn't get nervous about meeting people. But something about the anticipation of seeing Candy Jones clean made his pulse tick up a notch, and he didn't like it. The footsteps stopped at the kitchen entrance. Raoul forced himself to turn around casually, coffee pot in hand, and forgot how to breathe. The woman standing in his kitchen doorway was not the same person who'd thrown herself into his car yesterday. She was wearing one of Vanessa's dresses, a simple navy blue sundress that his ex-wife had probably worn once and forgotten about. But on Candy, it looked entirely different. The color brought out the deep undertones in her black skin. The fit showed a figure that had been hidden under ragged clothes, curves that made his mouth go dry. But it was her face that really got him. Without the dirt and exhaustion, Candy Jones was absolutely stunning. Her skin was smooth and clear, that rich brown that seemed to glow in the morning sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows. Her natural hair had been washed and twisted into small sections, then gathered into a loose bun with 2 twisted pieces framing her face. The style showed off high cheekbones, a delicate jawline, full lips. And her eyes, those large brown eyes that had been dull with hunger and fear yesterday, were bright and alert this morning, watching him with a mixture of nervousness and defiance. She was beautiful. No, she was more than beautiful. She was striking in a way that made Raoul forget about the coffee pot in his hand. It hung suspended, forgotten, while he just stared at her like an idiot. Get it together, Gaius. He cleared his throat roughly and forced himself to finish pouring the coffee, concentrating way too hard on the simple task. Good morning, he managed, and his voice came out lower than usual. Morning, Candy said softly. Is the dress okay? You said there were clothes in the closet and It's fine, Raoul interrupted, not looking at her because if he looked at her again, he might do something stupid. My ex-wife's. She left them when she moved out. They were just taking up space. He could feel her watching him as he added cream and sugar to one of the mugs. He'd noticed yesterday how she took her coffee and slid it across the counter to her. Thank you, Candy said, moving to sit on one of the bar stools. Raoul finally allowed himself to look at her again. Mistake. Because sitting there in his kitchen, in that sundress, with the morning light catching in her eyes, Candy Jones looked like she belonged there. And that was a dangerous thought. He'd planned this out last night. He'd verified her story. He'd confirmed she was telling the truth about being set up. He'd decided that despite all that, she was too much of a complication, too much of a risk. He'd planned to pay for the bread, give her enough cash to get a room at a decent shelter, and then send her on her way with a clear conscience. That had been the plan. But looking at her now, this strong, beautiful woman who'd survived hell and still had fire in her eyes, who was roughly the same age his sister would have been if she was still here, Raoul found himself reconsidering. Besides, he needed help with his mother, and he did need someone he could trust for the project he'd been working on. Someone from the streets. Someone who understood that world. Someone exactly like Candy Jones. It was calculated, strategic, not kindness. That's what he told himself anyway. Let's talk, Raoul said, pulling a pan of eggs and bacon from the oven where he'd been keeping them warm. You hungry? Starving, Candy admitted. He plated food for both of them, and they ate in silence for a few minutes. Raoul watched her eat. She had better manners than he'd expected, eating carefully rather than desperately, despite obviously being hungry. Interesting. So, Raoul said finally, setting down his fork and fixing her with his detective stare. Let's have that conversation about why you're stealing bread instead of working. Candy's hand tightened around her fork, but she met his eyes steadily. I told you, no one will hire me. Because? Because I have a criminal record. Raoul leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. What were you convicted of? He already knew the answer, but he wanted to hear her tell it, wanted to see if she'd lie or embellish or try to manipulate him. Candy took a breath. Grand theft auto and accessory to burglary. I took a plea deal, 3 years at Lincoln. Candy's jaw clenched. So my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, set me up. The car was his. He reported it stolen, told the police I took it without permission and used it in a burglary. I didn't even know about the burglary until the cops showed up at our apartment and found stolen items in the trunk. Let me guess. Boyfriend wasn't there when the cops arrived. He was at work, with witnesses. Perfect alibi. Candy's voice was bitter. My public defender said I could fight it and risk 10 years, or take the plea for 3. I was 20 years old and terrified, so I took the deal. And the boyfriend? Walked away clean. Probably found someone else to use. Raoul studied her face. She was telling the truth. He'd bet his badge on it. Her story matched what he'd found in the records. But more than that, there was real pain in her eyes when she talked about it. A real betrayal. Tyler Bennett, Raoul said, watching her reaction. Candy's eyes widened. How do you know? I'm a detective, Candy. I don't just take people's word for things. I verify. He leaned forward. I looked into your story last night while you were in the shower. Pulled your records. Pulled Tyler's records. Called in a favor with a former partner. So, I know you were telling the truth. I know Tyler has a history of exactly this kind of thing. I know you got screwed by the system and by a man you trusted. Raoul's voice was matter of fact. I also know you kept your head down in Lincoln, took classes, stayed out of trouble, did your full 3 years without causing problems. Candy stared at him. Then why are we having this conversation? Why not just arrest me for the bread and be done with it? Because I don't arrest people for being hungry, Raoul said, and because I might have a use for you. A use for me? Candy's eyes narrowed suspiciously. What kind of use? Smart girl. Immediately suspicious. Good. My mother needs help, Raoul said. She's grieving, has been for years. Her mind, it comes and goes. Some days she's sharp as ever. Other days she barely knows who I am. She needs someone to keep her company. Make sure she eats, takes her medication, doesn't wander off. The agency caregivers I've hired don't last. They treat her like she's senile, and she fires them within a week. And you think I'd be different? I think you understand loss, Raoul said bluntly. I think you know what it's like to have everything taken from you. I think you won't talk down to her or treat her like she's broken. And I think you need a job badly enough that you'll actually show up and work hard. Candy was quiet for a long moment. What's the catch? Smart question. Raoul respected that. The catch is, I don't fully trust you yet. You're an ex-con I met yesterday. For all I know, you could rob me blind the second I turn my back. I wouldn't, so you say, but I've been a detective long enough to know people lie. Raoul held up a hand to stop her protest. However, I'm willing to give you a chance. 30-day trial period. You help my mother. You live here. There's a small room off the kitchen that used to be the maid's quarters. You get a salary, 3 meals a day, and a chance to save money and get back on your feet. In return, you work hard, you're honest. And you don't steal anything. He paused. And if it works out, after 30 days, we'll talk about making it permanent. Maybe even help you get your record expunged if we can build a case that you were coerced. Candy's eyes filled with tears. Why would you do this? Raoul's jaw tightened. Consider it strategic charity. It came out harsher than he'd meant it to, but it was honest. He wasn't doing this out of the goodness of his heart. He was doing it because it served his purposes. and he needed Candy to understand that. Strategic charity, Candy repeated slowly. So I'm a project to you. You're a resource, Raoul corrected. One that benefits both of us. I get help from my mother. You get a job and a place to live. Everyone wins. Candy studied him with those sharp brown eyes, and Raoul could practically see her thinking it through, weighing her options, looking for the trap. There was more intelligence in this woman than her circumstances suggested. He liked that. 30 days, Candy said finally. And then we renegotiate. Agreed. And I want it in writing, a contract, so you can't just kick me out on a whim. Raoul's eyebrow rose. You don't trust me? You just said you don't trust me. Why should I trust you? A smile tugged at his lips despite himself. Fair point. I'll have my lawyer draw up a contract this afternoon. Then okay. Candy extended her hand across the counter. I'll take the job. Raoul shook her hand, her palm small and warm in his much larger one, and told himself the spark he felt was just static electricity, not attraction, not interest, definitely not the beginning of something dangerous. Good, he said, releasing her hand maybe a second too quickly. Then let's go meet my mother. And Candy? Fair warning, she's not easy. She'll test you, push your buttons, see if you'll abandon her like everyone else has. I won't, Candy said with quiet certainty. We'll see, Raoul said, because in his experience, everyone left eventually, and he'd learned a long time ago not to trust anyone who promised otherwise. Follow me, Raoul said. Candy wiped her mouth with a napkin and followed him through the massive house. She tried not to gawk at the artwork on the walls, or the expensive furniture, or the fact that this man lived in what was basically a palace. So, she said as they walked down a long hallway, your mom. Should I know anything before I meet her? Does she bite? Should I avoid certain topics? Is there a secret handshake? Raoul glanced back at her, one eyebrow raised. Are you nervous? I'm about to meet a woman who's apparently fired every caregiver you've hired. So yeah, a little nervous. She doesn't bite, Raoul said, a hint of amusement in his voice. But she does test people. She'll say outrageous things to see how you react. She'll pretend to be more confused than she is to see if you'll talk down to her. And she'll absolutely call you out if you're being fake. So basically she's like a really smart toddler. Raoul stopped walking and turned to look at her fully. For a second, Candy thought she'd offended him. She opened her mouth to apologize, but then he laughed. Actually laughed. A real, genuine sound that transformed his whole face and made him look years younger. That's actually a perfect description, he said, shaking his head. Though don't tell her I said that. She'd murder me. Your secret's safe with me, Candy said, trying not to notice how attractive he was when he smiled like that. Raoul stopped at a door and knocked softly. Mom, I've brought someone to meet you. He opened the door to reveal a beautiful suite of rooms with large windows overlooking a garden. Sitting in an armchair by those windows was one of the most elegant women Candy had ever seen. Warm, golden brown skin, dark hair streaked with silver, high cheekbones, dark, intelligent eyes. She had to be in her late 50s, but looked like she could have graced the cover of a magazine. She was also currently arguing with a potted plant. I don't care what you think, Elena was saying to the poor fern in the corner. Your green is absolutely your color, and you need to stop being so dramatic about it. Raoul sighed. Mom. Elena turned, and her face lit up when she saw her son. Raoul, finally. I've been waiting for hours, and this plant has been completely unreasonable about the whole situation. It's 9 a.m., Mom. I saw you at breakfast an hour ago. Did you? Elena looked genuinely confused for a moment. Then she waved her hand dismissively. Well, time is a construct anyway. Who's this? Her sharp eyes had landed on Candy. This is Candy Jones, Raoul said. I told you about her. She's going to be helping around the house, keeping you company. Helping? Elena stood up and walked toward them with the grace of a dancer. Is that what we're calling it? Or is this another one of your babysitters, Raoul? Because the last one lasted exactly 4 days before she ran away crying. 3 days, Raoul corrected. And she didn't run away crying. She submitted a professional resignation. She absolutely ran away crying. I saw her from the window. Elena stopped in front of Candy and studied her like she was a painting in a museum. You're very young? Yes, ma'am, Candy said. And very pretty. Thank you? And you need help. Elena tilted her head. I can see it in your eyes, that look of someone who's been chewed up and spit out by the world. Candy blinked. That's direct. I'm old. I don't have time for subtlety. Elena suddenly smiled. I like you. You don't have that fake, sympathetic look the other caregivers had. Like they were dealing with a wounded bird. Do I look like a wounded bird to you? No, ma'am. You look like you could probably kick my ass if you wanted to. Raoul made a choking sound. Elena's smile widened into a grin. Oh, I definitely like you. Raoul, leave. Candy and I need to talk. Woman to woman. Mom, I should probably… Did I stutter? Elena's voice went sharp. I said leave. Go do your detective things. Catch bad guys. Save damsels in distress. Whatever it is you do all day, shoo. She actually made a shooing motion with her hands. Raoul looked at Candy. If she gets two, we'll be fine, Elena interrupted. Go, Raoul. Your presence is making the room feel crowded. Raoul sighed but headed for the door. He paused at the threshold. Be nice, Mom. I'm always nice. That's a lie and you know it. Get out of my room, you oversized child. But there was affection in her voice, and Raoul smiled slightly before leaving. The door closed behind him. Elena immediately walked back to her chair and sat down with a heavy sigh. The sharp, energetic woman from moments ago seemed to deflate slightly. You can sit, she said, gesturing to the ottoman near her chair. I don't bite, usually. Candy sat carefully. Your son said you might test me. Did he now? Elena looked amused. Smart boy. What else did he say? That you'll say outrageous things to see how I react, that you'll pretend to be more confused than you are, and that you'll call me out if I'm being fake. All true. Elena leaned forward. So let's skip the testing and get to the truth. Why are you here, Candy Jones? And don't give me that I need a job line. There are 1,000 jobs in Chicago. Why this one? Candy decided honesty was her best bet with this woman. Because I stole bread yesterday because I was starving, she said bluntly. Because I'm an ex-convict who's been homeless for 4 months. Because your son could have arrested me or let that mob tear me apart, but instead he brought me here and offered me a chance I don't deserve. That's why I'm here. Elena stared at her, then started laughing. Really laughing. The kind of laugh that made her whole body shake. Oh, Raoul, she said between laughs. You really brought home a stray this time, didn't you? She wiped tears from her eyes. I'm not laughing at you, dear. I'm laughing because my son has been trying to find me a suitable companion for months, and they've all been so boring I wanted to die. But you? You're interesting. I'm a criminal, Candy pointed out. So is half of Congress, but we still let them run the country, Elena said dismissively. Tell me what you did. The truth. So Candy told her. About Tyler, about the setup, about 3 years at Lincoln, about getting out with nothing and ending up on the streets. Elena listened without interruption, without judgment, just patient attention. When Candy finished, Elena reached out and patted her hand. You got screwed by a man you trusted, she said. Welcome to the club. We have t-shirts. She paused. Actually, we should make t-shirts. That's a good idea. Write that down. Candy couldn't help but smile. I'll remember. Good. Elena settled back in her chair. Now, my son is going to pretend this is purely a professional arrangement. That he's doing you a favor out of the goodness of his heart, or because it's strategically useful, or whatever other excuse his emotionally constipated brain comes up with. Candy bit back a laugh at emotionally constipated. But the truth is, Elena continued, Raoul is desperately lonely. He's surrounded by people who want things from him. Money, connections, status. His ex-wife married him for his bank account and left him for a tennis instructor with better abs. Ouch. Indeed. So when he met you, Someone who literally didn't know who he was, who wanted nothing more than bread. It probably felt like fresh air after breathing smog for years. Elena's eyes were sharp and knowing. That's why you're here. Not because you need help, because he needs someone real. Candy didn't know what to say to that. Elena smiled. Don't worry. I won't tell him I told you. Let him keep his illusions that he's in control of this situation. Is he not in control? Dear, the moment a man brings a beautiful woman into his house and gives her a job, a room, and new clothes, he's lost all control. He just doesn't know it yet. Elena winked. This is going to be entertaining to watch. I'm not, Candy started. I'm not trying to. I know you're not. That's what makes it perfect. Elena reached for a book on the side table. Now, are you any good at reading aloud? My eyes get tired, but I love this mystery novel and I need to know if the butler did it. The butler never does it, Candy said. That's a trope. Exactly. So who did do it? Read, and we'll find out together. They spent 2 hours reading together. Elena would occasionally interrupt with commentary about the characters or predictions about the plot. Sometimes her commentary made perfect sense. Sometimes it veered off into stories about her own life or random observations about the weather. Candy learned to roll with it. When Elena got confused about what year it was, Candy gently redirected without making a big deal of it. When Elena suddenly demanded they have tea, like civilized humans, Candy found the kitchen and made tea. When Elena's eyes got distant and sad and she whispered, Isabella loved this book, Candy simply said, Tell me about Isabella. Elena's face crumpled. My daughter, my beautiful baby girl, she's gone. I'm so sorry, Candy said softly. Everyone says sorry. No one says they'll help find her. Elena's voice turned bitter. The police gave up. I said she drowned. But mothers know, Candy. We know when our children are gone from this earth. And I don't feel her gone. I feel her out there somewhere. Lost. Waiting. Candy didn't know what to say that wouldn't sound like empty platitudes. Elena looked at her with suddenly sharp eyes. You think I'm crazy. I think you're grieving, Candy said honestly. And I think the world doesn't let people grieve the way they need to. We're supposed to cry at funerals and then move on. But that's not how it works, is it? Elena stared at her. No, it's not. So grieve however you need to, Candy said. And I'll sit here and listen if you want to talk about her. Or we can read mystery novels and pretend butlers are murderers. Whatever helps. Elena's eyes filled with tears. She reached out and pulled Candy into a fierce hug that smelled like lavender and expensive perfume. You're staying, Elena declared. I don't care what Raoul says. You're staying, and that's final. I'd like that, Candy admitted. And she meant it. That evening, after Elena had gone to bed, Candy found herself too restless to sleep. She kept thinking about what Elena had said about Isabella, about a daughter who'd disappeared and never been found. Finally, she gave up on sleep and went looking for Raoul. She found him in his study, sitting at his desk with files spread everywhere and a glass of whiskey in his hand. He'd changed into more casual clothes, dark jeans and a fitted black t-shirt that showed off his muscular arms. He looked tired, and younger somehow, with his guard down. Candy knocked on the open door. He looked up, surprise flashing across his face. Everything okay? Is my mom? She's fine, sleeping. Candy hesitated. Can I come in? I wanted to ask you something. Raoul gestured to one of the chairs. Sure. I want a drink? I'm not old enough to drink. You're 24. Exactly. Legal age is 25 now, remember? Raoul blinked. Since when? I'm kidding. It's still 21. But you looked so tired I thought I'd test if you were paying attention. A smile tugged at his lips. You're a brat. I've been called worse. Candy sat in the chair across from his desk. Your mom mentioned your sister today. Isabella. The smile disappeared. Raoul's expression shuddered. My mother talks about a lot of things. Not all of it is. She said Isabella disappeared, Candy interrupted. And that the police think she drowned, but your mom doesn't believe it. Raoul was quiet for a long moment. You want to know what happened? Only if you want to tell me? Candy paused. But I'm going to be taking care of your mom. It might help if I understood everything. Raoul took a long drink from his glass. You sure you want to hear this? It's not a happy story. Most of my stories aren't happy either, Candy said. I can handle it. Raoul studied her for a moment, then sighed. All right, but you asked for it. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the dark garden. Isabella was 15 when she disappeared, he said. I was 22, fresh out of college, trying to figure out what to do with my life. My dad had died the year before. Heart attack, so it was just me, my mom, and Bella. I'm sorry about your dad. Thanks. Raoul's jaw clenched. Anyway, it was summer, hot as hell. Bella wanted to go to the beach, Oak Street Beach, right here in Chicago. So I took her. We were sitting on the sand, and Bella was in the water with her friends. And I was the adult I was supposed to be watching. He went quiet for a moment. I looked away for maybe 10 minutes. Raoul continued, his voice tight. 10 minutes. I was on my phone talking to a potential employer about a job interview. And when I looked up, Bella was gone. Candy's chest tightened. What did you do? What do you think? I lost my mind. Raoul turned from the window. I ran up and down that beach screaming her name. Her friends said she'd gone to get something from the concession stand, but she never came back. We called the police. They searched everywhere. The water, the beach, the parking lot, the whole area. And nothing. No body. No witnesses who saw anything useful. No evidence. Raoul's hands clenched into fists. After 3 weeks, the police officially declared it a probable drowning. Said the lake must have taken her. Told us to have a memorial service and move on. But you didn't believe them. Hell no, I didn't believe them. Raoul's voice turned sharp. Bella was an amazing swimmer. She'd been taking lessons since she was 5. She wouldn't have just drowned. Plus, her beach bag was still on the sand with her phone in it. Bella never went anywhere without her phone. Something didn't add up. Did you tell the police that? Of course I did. They said teenage girls are unpredictable. That maybe she ran away. Maybe she met a boy. Maybe she decided to swim out too far and got caught in a current. Raoul's laugh was bitter. They had a million maybes, but zero evidence. And after 3 years, they closed the case. Candy could hear the pain in his voice. The anger. The helplessness. Like, that's why you became a detective, she said quietly. Raoul looked at her sharply. My mom told you that? She mentioned it. Said you became a detective to find lost girls. Of course she did. Raoul moved back to his desk and dropped into his chair. Yeah, that's why I joined the force. I thought if I had the badge, the resources, the access to files and databases, I could find answers. Find Bella. Find out what really happened. Did you? I found that Bella wasn't the only one, Raoul said grimly. Over the past 20 years, at least 3 dozen young girls have disappeared from Chicago beaches, waterfront areas. All around the same age, all strong swimmers. All cases closed as probable drownings because no bodies were found. That's a pattern, Candy said. That's what I said. But without evidence, without bodies, and without witnesses, it's just a theory. A theory that makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist obsessed with his sister's death. Raoul rubbed his face tiredly. The department thinks I need to let it go. Move on. Accept that sometimes people just disappear and we never get answers. But you can't. No, I can't. Raoul met her eyes. Because my sister is out there somewhere, Candy. Dead or alive, she's out there. And my mom is losing her mind piece by piece because she can't accept that Bella's gone. Because she knows, the way mothers know, that something's wrong. Candy thought about Elena's fractured mind. The way she flickered between clarity and confusion. The pain in her eyes when she talked about Isabella. That's why her episode started, Candy said slowly. After Isabella disappeared. She was fine before, sharp, brilliant. She was an art history professor at Northwestern. Published books, lectured internationally. Raoul's voice was heavy. Then Bella disappeared and Mom just Broke. Started having episodes, confusion, paranoia. Days where she thinks it's 10 years ago and Bella's still here. Days where she thinks it just happened yesterday and we need to go search the beach right now. The doctors can't help? The doctors say it's trauma-induced psychosis brought on by unresolved grief. They say she needs to accept Bella's death and move on. But how can she accept a death when there's no body, no proof, no closure? Raoul laughed bitterly. So she takes medication that barely helps, and she has good days and bad days, and I hire caregivers who all quit because they can't handle her episodes. I'm not going to quit, Candy said. Raoul looked at her. It's like you say that now, but you haven't seen her on a really bad day, when she thinks you're Isabella, or when she's convinced someone's trying to poison her, or when she wanders outside in the middle of the night trying to find the beach. I've seen people at their worst, Candy said quietly. Prison will do that. I can handle it. Raoul studied her for a long moment. You're tougher than you look. I have to be. Candy paused. Can I ask you something else? You're on a roll. Might as well. Your mom said you're lonely. Raoul's eyebrow raised. Did she now? She said you're surrounded by people who want things from you, and that I'm here because I'm real. My mother, Raoul said slowly, talks too much. Is she wrong? Raoul was quiet for a moment. Then, no, she's not wrong. Most people in my life want something. My money, my connections, my name. It's exhausting. He leaned back in his chair. You jumped into my car because you were running from an angry mob over bread. You didn't know who I was, didn't care. You just needed help. And you helped me. Yeah, I did. Want to know why? Why? Because for the first time in years, someone looked at me and saw just a guy in a car. Not Detective Gaius, not the Westbrook heir, just some jerk who might or might not drive you away from danger. Raoul smiled slightly. It was refreshing. Well, Candy said, you are kind of a jerk, so that part was accurate. Raoul laughed, that same genuine sound from earlier that made him look younger and less burdened. See? That, right there. No one talks to me like that. Maybe they should. It might be good for you. Or terrible for my ego. Your ego can handle it. It's pretty big. Says the woman who threatened to end me in my sleep yesterday. Candy's cheeks heated. I was trying to sound tough. You sounded ridiculous. Wow, and here I thought we were having a moment. We are. This is the moment where I tell you that you're a terrible criminal and an even worse liar. Raoul's eyes danced with amusement. But you're good with my mom, and you make me laugh, so I guess you can stay. Gee, thanks. Your approval means everything to me. It should. I'm very important. And very humble. Humility is for people who have things to be humble about. Candy threw a pen at him. He caught it without even looking, still smiling. And in that moment, sitting in his study trading insults and smiles, Candy felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. She liked him. Really liked him. Which was absolutely, definitely, categorically a terrible idea. I should go, Candy said, standing up quickly. It's late, and your mom will probably want breakfast early. She'll want breakfast at whatever random time her brain decides is morning, Raoul corrected. But yeah, get some sleep. Candy headed for the door. Candy? She turned back. Raoul's expression was serious now. Thank you for asking about Bella, for caring. She mattered, Candy said softly. She still matters. I won't forget that. I know you won't. Raoul's voice was quiet. That's why I'm glad you're here. Candy left before the warmth in his eyes could make her do something stupid, like fall for her boss. Who was a detective? Who could send her back to the streets with one word? Definitely a terrible idea. Definitely. The first 2 weeks working for the Gaius family felt like living in a completely different universe. Candy had gone from sleeping in abandoned buildings and stealing bread to survive, to waking up every morning in a clean bed with soft sheets, in a room that locked from the inside, in a house where people actually cared if she was okay. It was disorienting. Wonderful. Terrifying. Her days fell into a comfortable rhythm. Wake up around 7. Make coffee. Find Elena either already in the garden talking to plants or still in bed convinced it was 1987 and she needed to get Isabella ready for school. On the good days, and there were more good days now, Elena was sharp, funny, and brilliant. They'd cook together, saw Elena teaching Candy how to make proper Italian pasta while sharing stories about growing up in a small coastal town in Italy where she'd met her husband. They'd work in the garden, Elena explaining the needs of each plant like they were temperamental celebrities. They'd sit in the library reading mystery novels, Elena making outrageous predictions about the killer. "It's the vicar," Elena announced one afternoon. "He's too nice. No one is that nice without hiding something." "The vicar is literally helping orphans," Candy pointed out. "Exactly. Overcompensating. Mark my words." On the bad days, Candy stayed patient. When Elena forgot what year it was, Candy gently reminded her. When Elena had panic attacks about needing to search the beach for Isabella right now, Candy sat with her and breathed with her until it passed. When Elena called her Isabella by accident, Candy didn't make a big deal of correcting her. And slowly, Elena started to stabilize. "You're a natural at this," Peter observed one morning, watching Candy help Elena with her medication. "Most caregivers get frustrated when she has episodes. But you just roll with it." "I've learned to adapt," Candy said. 3 years in prison will do that." Peter's expression softened. "Mr. Gaius made the right call bringing you here." Candy wasn't so sure about that, especially because the more time she spent in this house, the more complicated her feelings got about her employer. Raoul was everywhere. She'd wake up early and find him already back from his morning run, sweaty and breathing hard in the kitchen, his t-shirt clinging to those ridiculous shoulders in a way that made her brain malfunction. He'd come home late from the precinct and stop by the kitchen where she was cleaning up, leaning against the counter in a way that showcased his massive build, asking about his mother with genuine concern. And the conversations. They'd started as practical check-ins about Elena's care, but they'd evolved into something else. Something that felt dangerously like friendship. Or maybe more. "Mom tried to convince the mailman today that he's being followed by the CIA," Candy reported one evening while washing dishes. Raoul, who was making himself a very late dinner, paused mid-chop. "What reasoning did she give?" "Something about him wearing the same shoes 3 days in a row, which means he's either poor or trying not to leave different footprints for tracking purposes." "That's actually not terrible logic." "Raoul, I'm just saying, the CIA would absolutely use that tactic. The mailman is 65 and talks about his grandchildren constantly." "Perfect cover." Candy threw a dish towel at him. He caught it without looking, grinning. "What did you tell her?" "That if the mailman was CIA, he was doing a terrible job because real spies don't smile at everyone like golden retrievers." "And?" "And she said I had a point and decided he's probably just simple." Candy dried her hands. "Your mother is something else." "You mean crazy." "I mean brilliant and traumatized and processing grief in her own way." Candy turned to face him. "Stop calling her crazy. She's not." Raoul's expression softened. "You really believe that?" "I really do. And you should too." He studied her for a long moment. "You're good for her, you know. Good for both of us." The words made Candy's chest warm in a way she didn't want to examine. "Just doing my job," she said lightly. "It's more than a job now. We both know that." The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too warm, too charged with something Candy didn't know how to name. "I should," Candy started. "Stay," Raoul interrupted. "Talk to me while I cook. I'm making enough for 2 anyway." So Candy stayed. And they talked about everything and nothing. About Elena's good day in the garden. About a case Raoul was working on. Nothing confidential, just frustrating bureaucracy. About a book Candy was reading. About Raoul's terrible cooking skills despite his expensive kitchen. "How do you burn water?" Candy asked, genuinely baffled. "I was distracted." "By what?" "By—" Raoul stopped himself, something shifting in his expression. "By work stuff. Doesn't matter." But the way he was looking at her suggested it did matter. These moments kept happening. Stolen conversations in the kitchen. Accidental hand brushes when they both reached for the same thing. The way Raoul's eyes would track her when she walked into a room. The way Candy's heart would speed up when she heard his voice. Elena noticed, of course. "My son is falling for you," she announced casually one afternoon while they worked on a jigsaw puzzle. Candy nearly choked on her tea. "What? No, he's just being nice because he's falling for you," Elena repeated calmly, placing a puzzle piece. "I've known Raoul for 32 years. I've seen him interested in women before. This is different." "How?" "He looks at you like you're air, and he's been drowning." Elena smiled. "It's very romantic, very Italian. He gets it from his dad." "Mrs. Gaius?" "Elena, how many times?" She placed another piece. "I'm not saying you have to do anything about it. I'm just observing. And perhaps warning you that when my son falls, he falls completely. No half measures. It's quite dramatic." Candy didn't know what to say to that. "Don't look so terrified, dear," Elena said kindly. "Love isn't a prison sentence, though I suppose you'd know more about those than I would." "Too soon," Candy muttered. Elena laughed. "I like you. You're good for him. You don't let him brood or take himself too seriously. Lord knows someone needs to knock him down a peg or two. He does have a massive ego. Terrible ego, completely unearned." "I can hear you both," Raoul called from the doorway. "We know," Elena called back. "We're not being subtle." Raoul walked into the library looking amused and slightly embarrassed. "Mom, stop terrorizing my staff." "She's not your staff. She's family now, and I'll terrorize whoever I want." Elena stood up. "Now I'm going to take a nap because all this puzzle work has exhausted me. You two have fun with your unresolved sexual tension." "Mom!" Elena swept out of the room like a queen, leaving Candy and Raoul staring at each other in mortified silence. "I'm sorry about her," Raoul said finally. "Don't be. She's amazing. She's embarrassing. She's honest." Candy stood up. I'm very aware of how close Raoul was standing. How those gray eyes were focused entirely on her face. "And she's right. We should probably talk about—" "Don't," Raoul interrupted gently. "Not yet. Not while you work for me and live in my house. It's not fair to you." "What if I don't care about fair?" "I do." His hand lifted like he was going to touch her face, then dropped. "You're just getting back on your feet. You deserve time to figure out who you are without prison, without Tyler, without anyone else influencing you. Even me." Candy's throat tightened. "That's very noble of you." "I'm a very noble guy." "You're really not." "Okay, I'm trying to be noble. It's killing me, but I'm trying." Raoul smiled slightly. "Just give it time. Give us time. And if in a few months you still want to have this conversation, we'll have it. Properly. A few months? Or however long it takes for you to be sure." His voice was soft. "I can wait, Candy. You're worth waiting for." And that, Candy thought, was when she knew she was completely screwed. Because she was absolutely, definitely, irrevocably falling for Raoul Gaius. If you think Raoul waiting for Candy to be ready is the sweetest thing ever, hit that like button. Comment, "He's the sweetest guy," if you're screaming at them to get together. And subscribe, because what happens next is going to test their feelings in the most dangerous way possible. 3 days later, Candy was helping Elena plant new roses when Raoul appeared in the garden with an expression she'd learned to recognize. Detective mode. Something was bothering him. "Candy, can I talk to you? In my study." Elena waved her away. "Go. These roses need privacy anyway. They're being very emotional about the transplanting process." Candy followed Raoul inside, curious and slightly concerned. He closed the study door and gestured for her to sit. "I need to ask you about something you mentioned to my mom," Raoul said, settling into the chair across from her. "About when you were living on the streets." Candy's guard went up slightly. "Okay. She told me you told her about girls disappearing, and about a man in a hood who used to follow you." "I remember." Raoul pulled up files on his computer, turning the screen so she could see. "I need you to tell me everything about that." Every single detail you can remember. Why? Because for the past 2 years, I've been investigating a pattern. He pulled up a map of Chicago with red pins scattered across it. Young women, mostly homeless or vulnerable, disappearing from the streets with no trace. At least 15 cases that I know of. And probably more that were never officially reported. Candy's stomach dropped. You think they're connected to what I saw and maybe your missing sister? I think it's very possible, which is why I need details. Raoul leaned forward, his detective intensity focused entirely on her. How long did this man follow you? Where did you see him? What did he look like? Anything you remember could help. So Candy told him. Everything. About first noticing the hooded man maybe 2 months before she stole the bread. How he'd appear across the street or at the end of blocks, just watching. How he never got close, but his presence was constant. Menacing. About how the other girls on the streets would whisper warnings when they saw him. Shadow Man's back. Keep to groups. Don't walk alone after dark. About how she'd started seeing him more frequently in those last few weeks. Every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Following her. Watching her. About how terrified she'd been. How she'd stopped sleeping in the same place twice. How she'd stayed in more crowded, dangerous areas just because at least there were witnesses there. About seeing him that final morning across from the bakery, standing in the shadows, watching her. About how when the mob started chasing her, part of her panic was because she was running from him too. Raoul typed notes furiously, his expression growing darker with every detail. The timeline fits, he muttered, pulling up more files. If you were being actively targeted and you disappeared off the streets that day by coming here. I escaped, Candy finished quietly. Yeah. Raoul pulled up surveillance photos, grainy black and white images of a figure in a dark hoodie. Is this him? Candy's blood ran cold. The images showed a tall figure, always in dark clothing with a hood obscuring the face. But it was the way he moved that made her certain. Too smooth, too controlled. Like every step was calculated. That's him, she whispered. I'd recognize that movement anywhere. Where did you get these? Security cameras near shelters and known homeless gathering areas. Different locations, different times over the past 2 years. Raoul's jaw clenched. But always the same figure. And always within 48 hours of someone going missing. The weight of that settled over Candy like a lead blanket. Oh my God. Yeah. Raoul pulled up another file, this one showing dates and names. 15 women, that I know of, all within the last 2 years, all homeless or transient, all vanished without a trace. Candy scanned the list. Some of the names she recognized, girls she'd shared shelter space with, women who'd warned her about staying safe, all gone. What are you doing to find them? She asked. Everything I can. Raoul's frustration was clear in his voice. But I'm hitting walls everywhere. No one reports homeless women missing except other homeless people, and those reports get filed and forgotten. No physical evidence. No witnesses willing to talk to police officially. No bodies. Just women who disappear, and everyone assumes they moved on or overdosed or went with some guy. They're invisible, Candy said softly. Exactly. Society doesn't care when invisible people disappear. Raoul ran his hand over his face tiredly. I've been working on this case. I've been trying to find patterns, connections, anything, but without witnesses, without evidence. You need someone who can identify him. I need a lot of things I don't have. Raoul closed the files. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to dump all this on you. I just thought maybe you'd remember something that could help. Some detail that might give me a lead. Candy's mind was racing. 15 women. Probably more. All disappeared. All forgotten. She could have been number 16. I could help you catch him, she said slowly. Raoul's eyes sharpened. What? I could go back, to the streets. He was following me before. If I show up again, he might come back. Absolutely not. Raoul? No, not happening. End of discussion. He stood up, pacing. Do you understand how dangerous that would be? This man has successfully taken at least 15 women without leaving a trace. You want to put yourself in his path? If it helps catch him, it's not worth your life. Those women's lives were worth something, Candy argued, standing to face him. They mattered. They deserve justice. They deserve someone to care that they're gone. I care. That's why I've spent 24 months investigating. Raoul's voice rose. But I'm not going to use you as bait to catch him. That's insane. Is it? I'm the only person who can identify him. I've seen him multiple times. I know how he moves. On how he operates. From a distance, in surveillance photos. That's not enough, and you know it. So you need someone to get close to him, someone he'd approach. Don't. Raoul's voice went hard. Don't even finish that thought. Why not? It makes sense. He was already targeting me. If I go back... No. Raoul moved closer, his massive frame towering over her. But his voice was gentle despite the force behind it. Candy, I know you want to help. I know you feel like you owe something to those women. But I won't put you in that kind of danger. You'd have surveillance on me, a team ready to move in. That's not a guarantee of safety, and you know it. Raoul's hands clenched into fists at his sides, like he was physically restraining himself from grabbing her. This man is smart, organized, careful. He's evaded capture for at least 2 years. If he even suspected you were bait, if he figured out what we were doing, then we'd be careful. We'd plan it properly. There is no we in this scenario because it's not happening. Raoul's voice cracked slightly. I can't ask you to do this. You're not asking. I'm offering. Why? The word came out almost anguished. Why would you risk this? Candy took a breath, choosing her words carefully. Because I know what it's like to be invisible, she said quietly. I know what it's like to be someone nobody notices, nobody cares about, nobody remembers. Those women on the streets, they looked out for me when I had nothing. They shared food, warned me about dangers, tried to keep me safe. Her throat tightened. And now they're gone, and I'm safe. I'm here in this beautiful house with people who care about me, and I have the chance to actually do something, to help find them, to give their families answers. She stepped closer to Raoul. And because Isabella was 15 when she disappeared from that beach. Because your mom has spent 10 years grieving with no closure. Because you became a detective to find lost girls and you've been searching for your sister ever since. Candy's voice strengthened. If there's even a chance that this is connected, if there's even a possibility that doing this could give your family answers, I have to try. Raoul stared at her, and something broke in his expression. This isn't about Isabella, he said, but his voice was rough, unconvincing. Isn't it? But you said it yourself. At least a dozen girls disappeared from Chicago beaches and waterfront areas over 20 years. All unsolved? You think that's coincidence? I don't know. Yes, you do. You think they're connected. You've always thought they're connected. That's why you can't let this go. Candy held his gaze. Let me help you, please. Not like this. Not by making yourself a target. Then how? Raoul had no answer. The silence stretched between them. If I did this, Candy said carefully, hypothetically, what would it look like? Candy, hypothetically, Raoul, just walk me through it. He closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, they were filled with reluctance and fear. During the day, he said slowly, you'd be on the streets in areas where he's been spotted before. I'd dressed like you were when you were homeless, looking vulnerable. You'd be wired, audio and tracking device sewn into your clothes. I'd have a surveillance team watching from nearby positions. And at night? At night. Raoul's jaw clenched. You'd have to stay visible, approachable. You'd pretend to be working the streets, and I'd come pick you up every single night, disguised as a customer. You'd never actually spend a night out there. And if he approaches me during the day? You'd have a code word. The second you say it, my team moves in and grabs him. Candy nodded slowly, thinking it through. It could work. It could also get you killed. Or it could save the next 15 women he targets, and give answers to the families who've lost someone. Candy paused. including yours. Raoul turned away from her, gripping the edge of his desk so hard his knuckles went white. I can't do this, he said, his voice strained. I can't put you in that position. Why not? You said it yourself. I'm the only witness, the only person who can identify him. Because you're not just a witness. Raoul spun back to face her, and his eyes were blazing. You're not just some case file or investigation tool. You're... He stopped himself abruptly. I'm what? Candy asked softly. You're important, Raoul said finally. To my mom, to this family, to... He stopped again, jaw clenching. I can't risk you like that. Important to your mom, Candy repeated. Is that the only reason? Raoul didn't answer, but the way he was looking at her, like she was precious, like she mattered, like losing her would break something inside him, said everything he wasn't. But Candy moved closer until she was standing right in front of him. Raoul, she said gently, let me help, please. If something happens to you, it won't, because you'll be watching me every second, right? That's not a guarantee. But it's a better chance than those women had, than Isabella had, than the next girl he targets will have if we don't stop him. Candy reached out and took his hand, his massive hand that completely engulfed hers. I'm doing this, with your help or without it. Raoul's eyes flashed. That's manipulation. That's determination. And truth. Because I will go back out there if that's what it takes. Candy squeezed his hand. So you can either plan this operation properly with me, supervise it, keep me as safe as possible, or I can do it alone and hope for the best. Your choice. They stared at each other. Raoul's thumb unconsciously stroked across her knuckles, a gentle touch that contrasted with the tension in his frame. You're going to give me a heart attack, he said finally. Is that a yes? It's an, I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life, but you're too stubborn to stop. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her in a tight hug. We do this my way, my rules, my team. The second I say it's too dangerous, we pull you out. Agreed? Agreed, Candy said, her face pressed against his chest. You follow every protocol I set. No improvising, no taking unnecessary risks. I can do that. And if at any point you want to stop, we stop. No questions asked, no judgment. Okay. Raoul's arms tightened around her. I'm terrified, he admitted quietly. I've done dangerous operations before. I've put informants in risky positions. But this, sending you out there as bait, this is different. Why is it different? Candy asked, even though she thought she knew. Raoul pulled back just enough to look at her face. His gray eyes were intense, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. Because it's you, he said simply. The words hung between them, heavy with everything they hadn't said, everything they couldn't say yet. I'll be careful, Candy promised. I'll follow every rule. I'll say the code word the second anything feels wrong, and you'll be watching me. Every second, Raoul said. I won't take my eyes off you. Then I'll be safe. You better be. His hands came up to frame her face, and his voice went rough. Because if anything happens to you, Candy Jones, if that bastard gets anywhere near you, I will burn this entire city to the ground to find you. Understand? Candy's heart was pounding. Understood. When do we start? She asked. Raoul sighed heavily, like he was giving in against every instinct he had. Tomorrow. We start planning tomorrow. The operation begins in 3 days. Okay. They stood there for another moment, still holding each other, both knowing they'd just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. Candy? Raoul said quietly. Yeah? Thank you. For being brave enough to do this. For caring about those women enough to risk yourself. His thumb brushed her cheek. You're remarkable. I'm just doing what's right. That's what makes you remarkable. The next 3 days were intense. Raoul brought in his team, a group of 4 detectives he trusted completely. They planned every detail of the operation. Designated target areas based on where the hooded man had been spotted. created protocols for communication, fitted Candy with a wire so small it was invisible, sewn into the seam of her jacket, a tracking device embedded in the sole of her shoe. They practiced code words, planned pickup times, set up surveillance positions. Elena noticed something was happening but didn't push. "Be careful, dear," was all she said one morning. "And come back to me. I've just gotten used to having you around." "I'll come back," Candy promised. Peter was less subtle. "Mr. Gaius is losing his mind over this operation," he observed. "I've never seen him this tense. Whatever you're doing, please be safe. He needs you." "I need him too," Candy admitted. "It's to keep me safe." "That's not what I meant." Candy knew that, but she didn't know what to say. The night before the operation began, Candy couldn't sleep. She lay in her small room, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. Wondering if she'd see tomorrow night. Wondering what would happen if the hooded man actually took her before Raoul could intervene. Around midnight, there was a soft knock on her door. "Candy, you awake?" "Raoul." She opened the door to find him standing there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking as wrecked as she felt. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Can't turn my brain off." He ran his hand through his hair. "Can we talk? Just for a few minutes?" They ended up in the kitchen. Raoul made tea, badly, while Candy sat at the counter watching him. "You can still back out," Raoul said. "I'm not looking at her. Right up until you step onto that street tomorrow, you can change your mind. No one would blame you." "Would you blame me?" "I'd be relieved." "Liar." Raoul turned to face her. "Okay, part of me would be relieved. The part that's terrified of losing you. But another part of me would understand that those women need someone to fight for them. And you're the only one who can. Then I'm doing it." "I know." He brought the tea over. It was too strong and slightly burnt somehow. "I just needed to hear you say it one more time." They sat in silence for a while, both pretending the terrible tea was drinkable. "Raoul," Candy said finally. "Yeah? If something does go wrong tomorrow, it won't, but if it does," Candy continued, "I need you to know something." Raoul's entire body tensed. "Don't. We're not doing that. I'm not saying goodbye. I'm just saying—" Candy took a breath. "These past few weeks here have been the best of my life. You and Elena. You gave me a home, a family, a reason to believe I'm worth something. And I need you to know that even if I'd known how this would turn out, I'd still do it. Because you're worth it. This family is worth it. And those missing women are worth it." Raoul's eyes were suspiciously bright. "You're not allowed to make me emotional the night before an operation. It's unprofessional." "Since when are we professional?" "Fair point." He reached across the counter and took her hand. "Candy, when this is over, when we catch this guy and you're safe, we're having that conversation, the one we've been avoiding." "About?" "About how I'm falling for you so hard I can't see straight. I asked about how you've become the most important person in my life. About how if anything happens to you tomorrow, I'm going to lose my mind." His grip tightened. "About how I want you to stay. Not as my employee, not as my mom's caretaker, just as you, here, with us." Candy's breath caught. "Raoul, I know, bad timing, terrible timing, but I needed to say it, just in case." He stood up and moved around the counter until he was standing right in front of her. "So tomorrow you come back to me, understand? You say that code word the second anything feels wrong. You don't try to be a hero, you just come back." "I will," Candy promised. "Good." He pulled her into a hug, and Candy let herself lean into his warmth, his strength, his steady heartbeat. They stood there in the kitchen for a long time, both knowing that tomorrow everything could change, for better or worse. "Family, I need you to hold on because what comes next is intense." If Raoul just confessed his feelings and you're emotional, hit that like button. Comment, "Come back safe" if you're scared for Candy. And subscribe because the undercover operation is about to begin and you do not want to miss what happens next. Day 1 of the operation. Candy stood on a street corner in Uptown, dressed in the same ragged clothes she'd worn weeks ago when she was homeless. Her hair was intentionally messy. No makeup. She looked exactly like she had before. Vulnerable, alone, invisible. Except now she was wired. Tracked. Watched. Radio check. Raoul's voice came through the tiny earpiece hidden in her ear. Can you hear me? Candy coughed, the signal for yes. Good. I've got eyes on you. So does Martinez from the east and Chen from the west. You're covered. Raoul's voice was steady, professional, but Candy could hear the tension underneath. Just act natural. Sit, wait. We'll see if he shows. So Candy sat on the curb and waited. And waited. Hours passed. People walked by without seeing her. Just another homeless person beneath notice. Invisible. By nightfall, there'd been no sign of the hooded man. At exactly 9 p.m., a beat-up Toyota pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down, revealing Raoul in a baseball cap and sunglasses, completely unrecognizable as the polished billionaire detective. Looking for company? He asked, playing the role. Candy stood and got in the car. The second the door closed, Raoul's professional mask cracked. Anything? He asked urgently. Nothing. It just regular people ignoring me. Good, that's good. Raoul pulled into traffic. One day down. We'll try again tomorrow. Day 2. Same routine, different location. Still nothing. Day 3. Day 4. Day 5. Nothing. Maybe he's moved on, Candy suggested on day 6, climbing into Raoul's car for the nightly pickup. Maybe he found easier targets. Maybe, Raoul said. But he didn't sound convinced. Day 7. Candy was sitting on a bench in Logan Square, watching the sunset and wondering if this whole operation was pointless, when she felt it. That crawling sensation on the back of her neck that meant someone was watching. She looked up casually, scanning the area. And there he was, across the street. Dark hoodie, hands in pockets, standing perfectly still, watching her. The hooded man. Candy's heart started racing. She coughed twice, the signal that she'd spotted him. I see him. Raoul's voice came through her earpiece immediately. Don't look directly at him. Stay calm. We're moving into position. The hooded man didn't move, just stood there, watching. Then, slowly, he started walking. Toward her. Candy's breath caught. Her instinct screamed to run, but she forced herself to stay seated, to look vulnerable, approachable. The man got closer, closer. Candy could see him better now. Tall, maybe 6 feet, athletic build. The hood still obscured his face completely. He stopped about 10 feet away. Cold night, he said. His voice was wrong somehow, too smooth, too controlled. Yeah, Candy managed. You look cold. You need somewhere to stay? This was it. The approach. The same one he'd probably used on 15 other women. I've got somewhere, Candy said carefully. You sure? I know a place. Warm, safe, food. He stepped closer. You look hungry. Every instinct Candy had was screaming danger. But she needed him to commit. Needed him to actually try to take her so they could arrest him. What kind of place? She asked. Shelter, for girls like you, girls who need help. Another step closer. Come on, I'll drive you, no strings. That's what he told the others, Candy thought. No strings, just help, just safety. And then they disappeared. Umbrella, Candy said clearly, the code word. Moving in now, Raoul's voice said. Stay calm, 15 seconds. The hooded man's head tilted like he'd heard something. Then he smiled. Candy could see it even in the shadows of the hood. You're wired, he said conversationally. Oh, God. He grabbed her arm before she could react, his grip like iron, and yanked her off the bench. Candy! Raoul's voice shouted in her ear. The hooded man was strong, impossibly strong. He dragged her toward a dark van parked nearby. Let go of me, Candy screamed, fighting. Police! Freeze! Raoul's voice, his real voice, not through the earpiece, echoed from somewhere behind them. The hooded man moved faster, shoved Candy into the van, jumped in after her. The door slammed shut. The van was already moving. Candy hit the floor hard, her vision blurring. She could hear shouting outside, tires squealing. "Candy! Candy!" Raoul's voice through the earpiece, frantic now. "Stay calm, we're following you. The tracker is working, we've got your location, just stay calm." But the hooded man leaned down, yanked the earpiece from her ear, and crushed it under his boot. Then he smiled again. "Sorry about this," he said, "but you'll understand soon. They all understand eventually." The van drove through the dark Chicago streets, and Candy Jones disappeared. Candy just got taken. If you're screaming right now, hit that like button. Comment, "Find her Raul," if you're terrified. Subscribe because next part is going to be explosive when Raul tracks her down and discovers who is behind these disappearances, and it's someone he never expected. Don't you dare miss it. Raul was already running before the van door even closed. "Candy!" he shouted, sprinting toward the vehicle. But the van was fast, too fast. It peeled away from the curb with a screech of tires, nearly hitting two parked cars as it accelerated down the street. "Chris! Martinez, where are you?" Raul screamed into his radio while running full speed back to his car. "We're blocked. There was an accident." Chen's voice crackled. Someone called in a collision 2 blocks east. Uniforms responded and blocked the road. "It's a setup." Raul yanked open his car door and threw himself inside. "He planned this. Everyone converge on my location now and get me that tracker signal." He started the car and floored it, following in the direction the van had gone. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. His hands were shaking on the steering wheel. He'd lost her. He'd let that monster take her. "Boss, I've got the tracker." Martinez's voice came through. "Signal's strong. She's heading south on Ashland, moving fast." "I'm on Ashland," Raul said, weaving through traffic like a maniac. "What's her current location?" "Crossing Division, still southbound. Speed approximately 45 miles per hour." Raul pushed his car faster, running a red light and nearly causing 3 accidents. He didn't care. Nothing mattered except getting to Candy. "Stay with me, Candy," he muttered under his breath. "Stay calm. I'm coming. I'm coming." His radio crackled. "Boss, we've got units mobilizing. SWAT is on standby. What's the play?" "The play is we follow that tracker until it stops, and then I'm going in," Raul said. His voice was cold, deadly. And if that bastard has hurt her, there won't be enough left of him to arrest." "Boss, I said we're going in." Raul's voice cracked. "That's Candy in that van. We're not waiting for protocol. We're not waiting for backup. We're getting her out." A pause. Then, "Understood, boss. We're with you." Raul followed the tracker signal through the city streets, his entire body wound tight with fear and fury. "Hold on, Candy," he thought desperately. "Just hold on." Inside the van, Candy's head was spinning from where she'd hit the floor. She tried to sit up, but the hooded man pushed her back down. Not violently, almost gently, which was somehow worse. "Stay down," he said. "We'll be there soon." "Where?" Candy demanded, her voice shaking. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you'll understand." "I don't want to understand. Let me go." "Can't do that. The boss would like to see you. She's particular about who joins the family." She? The boss was a woman? Candy's mind raced, trying to understand. Trying to remember everything Raul had told her about the missing women. Trying to stay calm. Another tracker was still in her shoe. Raul would follow. He'd find her. She just had to stay alive until he did. The van drove for what felt like forever, but was probably only 15 minutes. When it finally stopped, Candy heard the sound of a garage door closing behind them. The hooded man opened the van door. "Out! Don't try to run. There's nowhere to go." Candy climbed out on shaky legs. They were in an underground parking garage. Concrete walls, dim lighting, several other vehicles parked nearby, fan and a door leading somewhere deeper. "Move," the hooded man said, gesturing to the door. Candy had no choice. She walked, through the door, down a hallway, the sound of music getting louder as they went deeper. And then the hallway opened up into a massive space that made Candy's stomach drop. It was a club, an underground club with low lighting, expensive furniture, a bar along one wall. But it wasn't the decor that made Candy's blood run cold. It was the girls. At least 20 young women scattered throughout the space, some sitting at tables, some at the bar, all wearing clothes Candy wouldn't wear even if she was home alone, all looking wary and tired and trapped. This wasn't just abduction. This was something much worse. "New arrival," the hooded man called out. Several women looked up, their eyes meeting Candy's with a mixture of sympathy and resignation. "Bring her to me." The voice came from deeper in the club. Female. Authoritative. The hooded man guided Candy through the space toward a private area in the back, separated by velvet curtains. Beyond the curtains was an office of sorts. Expensive desk, leather chair. And sitting in that chair, looking over paperwork like this was a legitimate business, was a woman. She was beautiful. Stunning, even. Light brown skin, long dark hair styled in elaborate braids, high cheekbones, full lips. She looked to be in her mid-20s, wearing an expensive suit that screamed power. She looked up when Candy entered, and Candy's breath caught, because she'd seen this face before, in photos all over Raoul's study, in the sketches Elena kept in her room. Younger, different, but unmistakable. "Holy shit," Candy whispered. "Isabella? Stop everything. Did Candy just find Raoul's missing sister, and she's the boss? If you're shocked, hit that like button, comment Isabella, and subscribe because this story is about to get insane." The woman's eyes sharpened. "How do you know that name?" "Your brother," Candy said, still reeling. Raoul Gaius. I work for him. He's been looking for you for 10 years. Something flickered across Isabella's face. Pain, anger, longing. It was gone in a second, replaced by cold calculation. "My brother," she repeated flatly. "The one who let me disappear. The one who looked away and lost me. That brother? He's been searching for you. For 10 years. Yes, you said that." Isabella stood up, moving around the desk. She was tall, almost as tall as Raoul, Ash with the same gray eyes. "And where was he when I needed him? Where was he when I was taken, when I was terrified, when I was—" She stopped herself, jaw clenching. "You don't understand," Candy said desperately. "He's been trying to find you. He became a detective because of you. His whole life has been about finding lost girls because he couldn't find you." "How touching," Isabella interrupted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "My big brother, the hero detective, saving everyone except the one person who actually needed him. That's not fair." "Fair?" Isabella laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about fair? 10 years ago, I was so young. I went to get a drink at the beach, and someone grabbed me, threw me in a van, just like how you got here tonight." Candy's chest tightened. "They brought me to a place like this," Isabella continued, her voice hard. "Told me I'd be working for them, that I belonged to them now, that if I tried to run, they'd end me. And I waited. I waited for someone to find me. For my brother the genius, for my mother, for the police, for anyone." Her eyes blazed with old pain. "No one came, so I survived. I learned the system. I played their game. I did what I had to do." Isabella's voice dropped. "And eventually, I became good at it. Good enough to take over. Good enough to run things my way." "This isn't you," Candy said. "This isn't who you are. You were a victim." "I was a victim," Isabella agreed. "Past tense. Now I'm the boss. Now I'm the one with power, and I protect these girls better than anyone protected me. By doing this to them, by giving them food, shelter, safety," Isabella shot back. "You think these women had better options? Most of them were living on the streets, starving, being hurt by everyone who saw them. At least here they're fed, clothed, protected. They're prisoners. They're alive." Isabella's voice went cold. "Which is more than I can say for the girls who came through here before I took over. The previous boss, he was a monster. When I dealt with him and took his place, I made rules. No one gets hurt here. No one loses their lives. The girls are treated with respect, fed well, and if they pay their debts, they can leave. That's still That's survival in a world that doesn't care about girls like us. Isabella moved closer, and Candy could see the resemblance to Raoul now. Same intense eyes, same strong features, same stubborn jaw. You think I wanted this? Or do you think I chose this life? No, Candy said softly. But you're choosing it now. You're choosing to hurt people the way you were hurt. Isabella flinched like she'd been slapped. Before she could respond, the hooded man spoke from the doorway. Boss, we've got a problem. There's cops outside. Lot of cops. Isabella's face went pale. How did they? Her eyes snapped to Candy. You're wired. Not anymore. Your guy crushed my earpiece. But you have a tracker. It wasn't a question. Isabella was already moving, grabbing Candy and checking her clothes. She found the device in Candy's jacket and ripped it out, crushing it under her heel. Too late. From somewhere above them came a sound like thunder. Chicago PD, this is a raid. Everyone on the ground. The club erupted into chaos. Girls screaming, people running, and the hooded man pulling out a gun. Put the gun down, Raoul's voice amplified through a megaphone. This is Detective Raoul Gaius. Everyone on the ground now. Isabella stood frozen, staring at the ceiling like she could see through it to where her brother was. Bella, Candy said gently, it's over. Let it be over. I can't go to prison, Isabella whispered. I can't go back to being trapped. Then come out peacefully. Explain what happened to you. Let Raoul help you. He can't help me. No one can help me. Isabella's voice broke. I'm not the little girl who disappeared from that beach. She's gone. No, she didn't, Candy insisted. She's still in there. She's the one who made rules to protect these girls. She's the one who took over to stop worse things from happening. She's still there, Bella. And when your brother is right upstairs dying to see you. Tears were streaming down Isabella's face now. He won't want me. Not after what I've done, what I've become. You're wrong. He's spent 10 years looking for you. He's never stopped, and neither has your mom. Mom? Isabella whispered, and her voice sounded young, broken. Is she? She's alive, and she's been waiting for you. The door burst open. Raoul stood there in full tactical gear, gun drawn, surrounded by a SWAT team. His eyes scanned the room, found Candy first. Candy, are you hurt? I'm fine, Candy said. Then Raoul's eyes moved to Isabella. He froze. Candy watched his face as recognition dawned. Watched the gun lower slowly. Watched his expression transform from professional detective to devastated brother. Bella? His voice cracked on the name. Isabella stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Hey, big brother, long time. Oh my God. Raoul's gun clattered to the floor. Oh my God, Bella, it's really you. Don't come closer. Isabella stepped back, holding up her hands. I'm not, Raoul, I'm the boss here. I run this place. These girls. I'm responsible for all of it. You have to arrest me. You have to. I don't care, Raoul said roughly. He moved forward, and his team looked confused but didn't stop him. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what happened. You're alive. You're here. Bella, I've been looking for you for 10 years. You should have looked harder, Isabella shouted, and all her pain came pouring out. You should have found me. I was here, Raoul. I've been here the whole time, and you never came. You let them take me. You looked away, and you let them take me. Her voice broke on a sob. I know, Raoul said, and he was crying too now. Candy had never seen him cry. I know. I'm so sorry, Bella. I'm so sorry. I looked away for 10 minutes and I lost you, and I've regretted it every second of every day for 10 years. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You left me, Isabella sobbed. You left me alone, and I know, and I'll never forgive myself. Raoul took another step closer. But you're here now. You're alive, and I'm not losing you again. Whatever happened, whatever you've done, we'll figure it out together. Please, Bella, please let me help you. You can't help me. Look at this place. Look at what I've done. I'm a monster. You're a survivor, Raoul said fiercely. You survived hell, and yeah, you made choices, hard choices. Choices I can't even imagine having to make. But you're still my little sister, and I'm taking you home. Isabella shook her head frantically. You can't. I have to go to prison. I have to pay for— We'll figure that out, Raoul interrupted. We'll get you lawyers. We'll explain what happened to you. But right now, I just need to know you're okay. He closed the distance between them and pulled his sister into his arms. Isabella fought for a second, then collapsed against him, sobbing like the young girl she'd been when she was taken. I missed you, she cried into his chest. I missed you so much. I wanted to come home, but I couldn't. I didn't know how. I didn't think anyone would want me back after everything. I wanted you back, Raoul said roughly, holding her tight. Every day, every hour, I wanted you back. And Mom wanted you back. We never stopped hoping. Candy stood there watching, tears streaming down her own face. And through the chaos of the raid, through the sound of officers securing the building and the girls being led to safety, through everything, this moment mattered. A brother and sister, reunited after 10 years. Broken, changed, but together. The aftermath was messy. Isabella was arrested. Of course she was. But Raoul pulled every string he had, called in every favor, got her the best criminal defense attorney in Chicago. The girls in the club were taken to safe houses. Counselors were brought in. The hooded man, whose real name was Flynn Flywood, was arrested for 15 charges. And Candy gave her statement to police approximately 7 times. I still can't believe you went into that van, Raoul said for the 100th time as he drove her home 3 days later. I still can't believe I let you go into that van. You didn't let me. He took me, Candy corrected. But the tracker worked. You found me. It's over. It's not over. Bella's facing serious charges. She's also a victim who was forced into this life, Candy interrupted. The lawyers will make that case. And from what you've told me, Isabella made rules that protected those girls better than the previous operation. That counts for something. Raoul was quiet for a moment. She thought I abandoned her. She was traumatized and scared. Of course she thought that. But I didn't. I looked for her every day. I know, and now she knows too. Candy reached over and squeezed his hand. Give her time, Raoul. And give yourself time. This is just the beginning. A week later, Raoul brought Isabella home. She was on house arrest with an ankle monitor awaiting trial. Her lawyers had negotiated a plea deal, full cooperation with authorities about the operation, testimony against everyone involved, and in exchange, consideration of her history as a victim. The best-case scenario was house arrest, probation, and mandatory therapy. Worst case was 10 years in prison. Isabella was terrified. Mom doesn't even know I'm alive yet, she said as they pulled up to the mansion. What if she doesn't recognize me? What if she's so far gone? She's getting better, Raoul said gently. Candy's been helping her. She has good days and bad days. But Bella, she's never stopped believing you were alive. She always knew. They walked into the house together, Raoul, Isabella, and Candy. Elena was in the garden, talking to her roses about their dramatic behavior. Mom? Raoul called softly. Elena turned around, garden shears in hand, a smudge of dirt on her cheek. Her eyes landed on Isabella. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Elena's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, recognition, hope, and finally, overwhelming joy. Isabella, she whispered. Hi, Mama, Isabella said, her voice breaking. The garden shears fell from Elena's hand. My baby girl, you're here. You're really here. Elena crossed the garden in seconds and pulled Isabella into her arms, sobbing. I knew it. I knew you weren't gone. I knew you were out there. Everyone said I was crazy, but I knew. A mother knows. A mother always knows. Isabella crumpled against her mother, and 10 years of pain and loneliness pouring out. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. I wanted to come home, but I couldn't. I didn't know how. Shh, baby. You're home now. You're home. Elena held her daughter, rocking her gently. You're home, and I'm never letting you go again. Never. Do you hear me? Never. Raoul stood with his arm around Candy, both of them watching the reunion with tears streaming down their faces. You did this, Raoul said quietly to Candy. You found her. You brought her home. We did it together, Candy corrected. No. You pushed for the operation when I was too scared to risk you. You went undercover when I would have played it safe. You survived being taken. You connected with Bella when she was ready to fight. You brought my sister home. He turned her to face him, his gray eyes intense with emotion. I love you, Candy Jones. I know that's crazy. I know it's fast. But I've loved you since you threw yourself into my car covered in dirt and clutching stolen bread like it was treasure. And I'm done pretending otherwise. Candy's heart was pounding. Raoul, you don't have to say it back. Not yet. Not until you're ready. His thumb brushed her cheek. But I needed you to know. After everything that happened, after almost losing you, I couldn't keep pretending this was just professional anymore. Candy looked up at the man who'd saved her life in more ways than one. Who'd believed in her when no one else did. Who'd given her a home, a purpose, a family. I love you too, she said softly. I think I have since the moment you drove away from that mob and didn't ask questions. You just helped? Raoul's face broke into that devastating smile she'd come to crave. Yeah? Yeah. He leaned down and kissed her, gentle at first, then deeper. His arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. And Candy kissed him back with everything she had. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Raoul rested his forehead against hers. So, he said, his voice rough. Now that we've established the I love you part, Candy Jones, will you go out with me? A real date, dinner, somewhere fancy, the whole thing. Candy laughed, tears still wet on her cheeks. Are you seriously asking me out right now? In the garden? While your mom is having a breakdown reunion 10 feet away? I'm a man of opportunity. You're ridiculous. Is that a yes? Candy looked at him, this massive, brilliant, stubborn, a wonderful man who'd changed her entire life. Yes, she said. It's a yes. 2 months later, life in the Gaius household had transformed. Isabella was slowly healing. Therapy 3 times a week, family dinners every night, long conversations with Elena in the garden where they made up for 10 years of lost time. Her lawyers had secured a favorable plea deal. 5 years of probation, community service, and mandatory counseling. No prison time, given the circumstances of her kidnapping and the testimony she'd provided against the trafficking ring. She was broken in ways that would take years to fix. But she was home. She was trying. And that was enough. Elena's episodes had decreased dramatically since Isabella's return. It was like a piece of her fractured mind had finally clicked back into place. She still had bad days, but they were fewer now. She laughed more, talked about the future instead of the past. And Candy. Candy was thriving. I want to go to college, she announced one evening during dinner. The table went quiet. Raoul looked up from his pasta, one eyebrow raised. Elena clapped her hands together in delight. Isabella, still getting used to family dinners after a decade of isolation, smiled tentatively. That's wonderful, dear, Elena exclaimed. What would you study? Social work, Candy said, her voice steady despite her nerves. I want to help people like me, people who've been through the system, people who think they don't have options. She looked at Raoul. You showed me that things can get better. I want to do that for other people. Raoul's expression softened into something that made Candy's chest warm. I think that's incredible. Really? You don't think it's too ambitious? I don't even have a high school diploma. I got my GED in prison. Candy. Raoul reached across the table and took her hand. You survived things that would have broken most people. You kept your humanity when the world gave you every reason to lose it. If anyone can get through college and become a social worker, it's you. Northwestern has an excellent program, Elena added. I still have contacts there from my professor days. I could make some calls. Mom, you can't just call up a university and demand they admit someone. Watch me, Elena said serenely. Isabella laughed, a real laugh, the kind Candy had rarely heard from her. She absolutely can and will. When I was 10, you know what she called the mayor's office because they hadn't fixed a pothole on our street fast enough. The pothole was a safety hazard, Elena said primly. And it got fixed, didn't it? The table dissolved into laughter and teasing, and Candy felt something she'd almost forgotten was possible. Happiness. Real, genuine, I can't believe this is my life happiness. Later that night, after dinner, Raoul found her on the back patio, looking up at the stars. "Hey," he said softly, coming to stand beside her. "You okay? You got quiet after dinner." "I'm perfect," Candy said, and she meant it. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, you know? For something to go wrong, for all of this to be taken away." Raoul pulled her against his side, his arm warm around her shoulders. "Nothing's getting taken away. Not if I have anything to say about it." "You can't control everything." "I can try." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "So, about that college thing, you're serious?" "Dead serious. I've been looking at programs online. There's a community college that has a bridge program to a 4-year university. I could start in the spring semester." "I'll pay for it." "Raoul, I know, you want to do things yourself. I respect that." He turned her to face him. "But let me help. Not because you need me to, because I want to. Because investing in your future is the best thing I could possibly do with my money." Candy studied his face, those gray eyes that had become her favorite thing to look at. That strong jaw, the way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Okay," she said softly, "but I'm paying you back eventually." "Sure you will," Raoul said, clearly not believing her. "I will." "Mm-hmm." He kissed her forehead. "Whatever helps you sleep at night. You're insufferable. And yet you love me. Inexplicably." He laughed and pulled her into a real kiss, the kind that made her forget about everything except the feel of his arms around her and his lips on hers. When they finally broke apart, Raoul's expression had turned serious. "I meant what I said before," he murmured. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that." That sounds suspiciously like a proposal. "It's not yet." He grinned. Candy's heart skipped. "Raoul Gaius, are you telling me you want to marry me someday?" "I'm telling you I want forever with you. However that looks, whenever you're ready." He brushed a curl from her face. "No pressure, no timeline, just the truth." Candy didn't have words for what she felt in that moment, so she kissed him again instead. That weekend, Candy enrolled in courses at Harold Washington College. She'd start in January, basic prerequisite classes to build her foundation. Then she'd transfer to a 4-year program. Then she'd get her degree in social work. Then she'd spend her life helping people who'd been where she was. It was a long road, but for the first time, she was excited about the future instead of afraid of it. She'd learned that your past doesn't have to be your future. She'd been a thief, an inmate, a homeless woman stealing bread to survive. Now she was a daughter, a sister, a partner, a student. Tomorrow she'd be a social worker, reaching back into the darkness to pull out others the way Raoul had pulled her out. Because that's what surviving really means. Not just getting through the hard times, but using them to light the way for someone else. For everyone who's ever felt like they were at rock bottom, keep going. Your Raoul might be one desperate decision away. Your family might be waiting where you least expect. And your future? It's still unwritten. You are not your worst moment. You are every moment that comes after. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Comment what lesson meant the most to you. And subscribe because everyone deserves to believe that their story isn't over. That the best chapters might still be ahead. Share this with someone who needs to hear that today. You never know whose life you might change.